Right, we are following breaking news out of Iran on an assassination. Let's get to Nick Payton-Walsh, who has the details. What have we got at this point, Nick?
Limited information, Becky, but what state media appears to be focusing upon now with some element of certainty is that a well-known nuclear scientist in Iran, we'll get to his career history in a moment, Mohsen Fakhrizadeh, seems to have been killed, it appears, in an attack on his car on the outskirts of Tehran, a verdant area near the hills nearby. There have been some images shown on state media that seem to show that particular scene. Why is this man so particularly important? Well, if it does appear that he has in fact died of injuries, as it seems now a number of state media reports are suggesting that in fact he and some of his bodyguards were taken to hospital and succumbed to their injuries there. This would potentially be a blow for Iran's prestige again, certainly. And then also, if you listen to accusations made by the Israelis, and as recently as last year by the US State Department, potentially a blow to what they say are Iran's ongoing efforts to have a nuclear weapon. Remember, a lot of debate about whether or not Iran's adherence to the nuclear deal in 2015 that Donald Trump stormed out of in fact stopped their progress towards a weapon. Most signatories to that seem to believe this. But since Donald Trump tore the US out of that deal, to the chagrin of European allies, it is quite clear in public statements that Iran has sped up its enrichment, possibly towards areas which would make those signatories to the deal extremely uncomfortable. This man, Mohsen Fakhrizadeh, has been mentioned in a number of documents, as I should say. He featured key in a speech done in August 2018 by Benjamin Netanyahu, the Israeli Prime Minister, where he outlined what he said was a tranche of files essentially taken from Iran's archives that showed historically what they'd been up to, how bent they were on getting a weapon. Many viewed that speech at the time as being a bid by Israel to push the Trump administration into further action, to further discredit a nuclear deal that Israel's hawkish side had always disliked. What we're seeing, I've just been reading actually in the State Department report in late last year, they say that Iran had efforts to retain records from its past nuclear weapons program and credits the Netanyahu speech for bringing that to light. They refer to the continued leadership of former head of that program, Mohsen Fakhrizadeh, suggesting that Iran preserved information from its historical efforts to aid in any future decision to pursue nuclear weapons, if a decision were made to do so. So clearly within the intelligence body of the United States, and most likely Israel as well, they viewed this man to be absolutely key in terms of the knowledge. Now, why, if it does turn out that these state media reports are correct and there are suggestions that possibly he was injured, that will play out in the hours ahead, understandable confusion with a figure of this magnitude. If it does seem that he was in fact killed in the safeguard area of Iran, around Tehran, a man with bodyguards assassinated, the finger of suspicion will of course point initially to Israel, who've said nothing at this stage about this, but it will again be an embarrassment for Iran, given they lost their most prominent military figure, Qasem Soleimani, the Iranian Revolutionary Guard chief, just the same time earlier on this year, in a similarly, you would have thought, secure bubble as he travelled in Iraq. If this one man has in fact managed to be targeted by assassins, that would suggest that there is certainly a leak of information within Iran's more secure nuclear circles too. You have to ask yourself, a figure well known as this, appearing in multiple IAEA nuclear watchdog reports and State Department reports too, how intimately involved would he remain? Well, he's said to potentially be involved with part of the Revolutionary Guard's Science Development Division to look into what they might do in the future. And I suppose here you have to look at exactly what the end game of a killing like this may in fact be. If you are looking to push Iran's hawks into an uncomfortable position here, this certainly does that. And if you're looking to rock the boat, muddy the waters ahead, potentially of a US President-elect Biden administration coming in January, a killing like this will certainly put people's backs up. Although, frankly, it's to some degree embarrassing for Iran, rather than prompting them to have to do something. A very interesting event indeed, certainly, that just focuses everyone's minds on precisely how vital in the region Iran's nuclear program and the bids to curtail it actually are. Becky?